Lennox maintains his uncertainty and responds that he's still contemplating his choices. Sensing his situation, the shop owner hands him a particular type of onion, mentioning its efficacy for insomnia because, noting his looks, it seems he needs it. In addition to the recommended onion, Lennox buys a few green onions and 6 bell peppers. While putting his vegetables in a bag, the girl unexpectedly remarks that Annarasumanara is pretty unique. Suddenly, her eyes take on a green hue as she addresses Lennox, questioning what a mage like him is doing in that place. Furthermore, she remarks that she would have remembered that precise pattern, wondering if he had recently come to the Balkan. However, Lennox pretends that he doesn't know what she is talking about, while deep down, he wonders who this woman is because she realizes he is a mage and casually talks about his mana pattern. The girl hands Lennox his grocery bag and informs him that the total amount is 32k sel. The protagonist takes the bag and pays her the required amount. As he departs, the girl casually bids him to come again. Reflecting on the encounter, Lennox turns back, pondering whether the girl might have seen the leaked mana pattern from his barrier magic. Puzzled by how she could discern the mana pattern with her bare eyes, considering that even the police rely on devices to read such patterns, Lennox speculates on the girl's abilities. He considers the possibility that she possesses a particular skill or might be a mighty mage, both of which he perceives as potentially unfavorable circumstances for him. This unexpected recognition by a stranger prompts Lennox to reassess his use of magic, and makes him resolve to be more cautious in controlling and concealing his magical abilities. After that day, he spent days in his hotel room, researching magic to improve the common magic he already knew, but he still couldn't find a clue regarding inherent magic, and his body didn't get better. As he had to depend on drugs for the time being, he needed a proper identity and enough money to get better drugs. After spending days in seclusion, he visits the bar and expresses his desire to get an identity, pondering if it is possible. Jenny acknowledges that obtaining an identity is possible, but comes with a hefty price tag, roughly around 20 million sel. However, she reassures him not to fret over the cost because she intends to propose a new job for him regardless. She informs him that there are plenty of jobs he can take on comfortably for lots of money when it comes to the magic he has. When Lennox ponders the work, she elaborates that this one's a request from a business that will get him more money than bounty hunting. She acknowledges that Van prefers bounty hunting, but emphasizes that taking those requests from companies will be good if he thinks about the earnings. She sarcastically ponders if he enjoys chasing insane criminals, to which Lennox, still in his Van persona, affirms that he doesn't like that pursuit. Jenny commends his remark and then invites him to go somewhere else to talk. After taking him to a separate room, she informs him that the target of the requester is Charlotte Corporation's new makeup factory in District 42. 80% of the construction fee was government funding, so there's a bit of drama on that. She elaborates that the moisturizer they were supposed to make underwent much human testing, prompting Lennox to wonder about human testing. Jenny reveals that Charlotte Corporation is famous for anti-aging techniques that are supposed to regenerate even dead skin. There's evidence that they even stripped an entire face's skin off a person in the development process because they wanted to recreate a perfect environment or something. It startles Lennox, and he anxiously ponders if the truth is revealed as he doesn't see what more work needs to be done. However, Jenny dismisses his assertion, asserting that there's no way Charlotte Corporation would give the factory up, and adds that they even took money from the government, so what would they care about some nasty rumors? While Lennox checks the details on the laptop, she elaborates that the requester, this time, is Varda's Corporation. They recently got into the makeup business and want to win against the competition, Charlotte. She explains that Vardas's request only has 2 conditions. First, hacking after infiltration, 350 million sel for Charlotte's makeup manufacturing data, and if he doesn't want to do the first condition, then the second one is 50 million sel for destroying the factory beyond recovery. When Lennox remarks that the first condition sounds impossible, Jenny concurs that 350 million sel is insufficient to hire someone skilled enough to infiltrate and hack. According to her, this offer might be more of a test to see if anyone naive enough would take the bait, while the genuine intention lies in destroying the factory. Given the perceived simplicity of the task, Lennox confidently agrees to undertake the assignment, showcasing his assurance. Jenny commends his confidence and readiness to accept the job despite its potential risks and implications. She then mentions that she will introduce a partner working with him on this. However, it startles the protagonist because she hasn't said that earlier. Soon, that person, entirely covered in a costume, barges into the room, prompting Lennox to wonder who he is. Jenny introduces Dylan O'Casey to Lennox, revealing that he is a mercenary affiliated with Antares. Furthermore, she mentions that he is famous for being cheap to hire. However, Dylan ponders what that mage will think of him if she introduces him like that and emphasizes the importance of making an excellent first impression. But Jenny doesn't take it seriously and sarcastically calls him a crazy masked dude. Dylan then greets Lennox, who introduces himself as Van, specifying his expertise as a lightning mage. The protagonist wonders about the rationale behind having a partner, prompting Jenny to explain that she was seeking an additional person as the job appeared too overwhelming for just one individual. In a sarcastic tone, Dylan asserts his capability to handle the job alone, claiming that Jenny had mentioned the possibility of hiring one more person, so he was waiting accordingly. However, Jenny looks sternly, indicating disagreement or disapproval toward Dylan's false assertion or claim about being fine to handle the task solo. Noting Dylan's non-serious attitude, Lennox comments that he would prefer if Jenny let him know ahead of time about working with a partner, and Jenny concurs, stating that she will keep that in mind. The protagonist then ponders if they will divide the 50 million cell in half, while Dylan responds that Jenny probably takes a bit too. However, Jenny acknowledges that she has made a mistake this time, so she won't take any, which startles Dylan. He starts mocking her about how that is possible and what's up with her today because she loves money, while Lennox is taken aback that she made up for the mistake on the spot. Lennox considers it an excellent way to make up for this mistake, but he wonders if it is really a mistake or maybe she's just trying to cross the line with him. Inwardly contemplating the situation, Lennox resolves that if Jenny tries further manipulations, he will handle it confidently as he already has the upper hand in this relationship anyway. Meanwhile, irritated by Dylan's mockery, Jenny smacks Dylan's head on the table, accusing him of this fault, and then asks Lennox if they should look at the factory blueprint. Contrasting the underdeveloped 50s district, the 40s districts, especially those with lower numbers, boast substantial facilities, being entirely satisfactory even compared to the higher numbered districts. The targeted factory of Lennox and Dylan is located in District 42. While walking towards the factory, Dylan remarks that Jenny seems to hold Lennox in pretty high regard, reasoning that she is usually not the kind of woman who would easily give up on money. Usually, she would take some processing fees, but Dylan speculates that Jenny believes fostering a positive relationship with Lennox is a more advantageous choice in this scenario. Meanwhile, Lennox contemplates if Dylan was listening to their entire conversation at the bar and wonders if he is the type to hide who he truly is with his flashy appearance. Dylan hands him a business card, prompting Lennox to wonder what this is for. The masked guy informs the protagonist that he doesn't need to stick to just one place for work. Lennox asks if he is trying to recruit him right now, and Dylan responds that there is no harm in befriending as many mages as possible. In fact, he believes it could benefit Lennox. He acknowledges that his office might be rough, but he adds that his agency has many guys skilled at using their bodies like him. However, he asks Lennox to keep what they are talking about a secret from Jenny, while the protagonist sarcastically responds that Dylan is a smooth talker and wonders if that guy is as good at working. After a while, they reach the Charlotte factory, and Lennox covertly espionage the area by perching on Dylan's shoulder to get a better vantage point. Lennox notices that the security measures appear relatively lax, notably sloppy and inadequate. However, Dylan remarks who would be crazy enough to mess with a big corporation like Charlotte and asserts that he wouldn't even be looking in their direction if Vardis hadn't asked him to. He reveals that those security troopers are from 888, They are all ex-criminals and thugs, so they are the lowest quality security troopers even amongst other security companies. He concludes that just means they will feel less guilty even if they kill one or two of them by mistake. Lennox then turns around to start their mission, but Dylan halts him, pondering if he will work with his face exposed. Furthermore, he adds that their security might be wrong. However, there's still no need for Lennox to expose his identity, so he offers a mask to Lennox to cover his face, but the protagonist doesn't accept it and walks away, stating that it doesn't matter. However, Dylan insists that he can't do that because it's dangerous and asks what if Charlotte's security chases after him because of Lennox. The protagonist reluctantly agrees, improvising by covering his face with his turtleneck shirt and sets out to commence the mission. The strategy for this request is simple. Dylan infiltrates the factory through the back door and attracts attention, while Lennox will enter through the warehouse, head further inside, and destroy the factory. While the plan may seem uncomplicated, it would be Dylan if Lennox were to identify any potential variables. The masked man abruptly barges into the factory and assaults the two guards in the yard in no time. He suddenly spots another guard who appears to be alerting additional guards using a walkie-talkie. Dylan hurriedly approaches the guard and swiftly subdues him before he can relay any warnings to the rest of the security team. Meanwhile, Lennox is amazed by his performance, realizing that his earlier worries were unfounded and acknowledging Jenny's knack for choosing competent individuals. Before taking any action, the protagonist uses the Viper and heads towards the warehouse. However, he finds that the door is locked, so in that case, Lennox gets the chance to use the Dykeslays cutter, which he got from the delinquents, and opens the door. Upon entering, Lennox encounters an elderly security guard holding a gun, visibly trembling as he commands Lennox to raise his hands. The protagonist recognizes that the person is an ordinary guard rather than a highly trained security operative, so he uses the natural sleep maneuver. This technique renders the guard unconscious, causing him to collapse to the ground, while Lennox reflects on the importance of preventing innocent civilians from getting involved in the impending explosion. The protagonist then employs an invisible string to control the unconscious guard by unleashing the marionette maneuver, which causes the guard to walk out of the factory like a puppet controlled by strings. Descending the stairs, Lennox overhears the commotion and chaos within the factory, inferring that Dylan is effectively drawing attention as planned. Observing the situation, Lennox assumes that everything will be smooth sailing until it's over. Amidst the chaos, a security trooper attempts to shoot Dylan. However, he swiftly incapacitates the fighter by striking him with a bag. He was towards the unconscious warrior, considering the number of lower-level security personnel was more significant than anticipated. Upon entering the factory's working area, Dylan is surprised to discover the absence of any troops inside, assuming they might have pursued the mage. However, his astonishment is short-lived. As he proceeds further, Dylan is suddenly confronted by dozens of troops aiming their laser guns directly at him. Despite the alarming situation, Dylan remains unperturbed, even experiencing a sense of satisfaction at the turn of events. Meanwhile, one of the troopers warns him that they will open fire if he doesn't bow down in 5 seconds. Nevertheless, despite the imminent danger and the trooper's threatening stance, the masked man acknowledges that the assembly of so many fighters around him is a testament to his proficiency and skill in his line of work. Now he doesn't have to hunt each of them down anymore. Dylan emanates an aura of mana and swiftly launches an aggressive attack against most troopers using his dagger. Despite the remaining guards opening fire on him, he skillfully evades their shots, effortlessly overpowering them with his superior skill. Standing firm and in control, he sternly ponders who will be the next one to face his prowess. On the other hand, Lennox notices the presence of a temperature control gas system, a common feature in large factories. He forcefully rotates the gas valve to turn it on and asserts that this quantity of gas will be sufficient to cause a substantial explosion, potentially engulfing the entire area. As the gas starts leaking, he employs the ignite maneuver to light a spark. He considers that creating flames isn't difficult because he uses elementary ignition magic. Now, all that is left for him is to set this spell to activate after both he and Dylan escape. He then contemplates that he should thank the vegetable stall lady because after meeting her, he worked on changing and utilizing common magic, which taught him that simple common magic could be combined. He then creates a magic timer and sets it to 5 minutes. He plans to evacuate the factory before the timer runs out, ensuring their safe exit from the impending explosion. Suddenly, he hears a commotion and wonders what that sound is. At the same time, Dylan, who is dealing with the guards, also notices the commotion. Someone is attempting to forcefully enter the factory by trying to breach the metal shutter, causing a disturbance that grabs Lennox and Dylan's attention. Soon, the shutter collapses and a crocodile-like creature strides in, addressing Dylan about the chaos he has caused. Lennox abruptly hushes out of the basement to know the reason for the commotion and is taken aback to see that giant crocodile. He hides behind the pillar to contemplate the situation. Upon the creature's arrival, Dylan remarks that it's been a while, and it seems they already know each other. In response, the crocodile comments that it's nice to see him again and asks Dylan about the well-being of his boss, Andreas. Dylan assures the creature that Andreas is indeed alive and in good health. Mr. Crocodile further asserts that he doubted him when he said he wanted to start a business and left by himself. However, it seems Dylan's boss has something up his sleeve. Undeterred, the masked guy acknowledges that his boss is quite the pioneer, to which the creature laughs sarcastically and asserts that Dylan must understand the situation he is in. Dylan asks Mr. Crocodile how much they pay him, and he is sad to hear that they have paid the creature 10 billion sel to kill him, which startles Lennox. However, Dylan tells the crocodile that killing him wouldn't be easy and asks if he could toss that bag. Mr. Crocodile casually tosses that bag toward Dylan and refers to it as a toy. As Dylan extracts the spear from the bag, he firmly declares that despite Mr. Crocodile's trivialization, the spear will inflict significant pain upon him. The crocodile smacks him aside with a mere punch and remarks that the masked bastard is still as silly as ever. Dylan realizes that the spear is not working well for him today, but then swiftly retrieves an axe from his bag and rushes to assault that creature, urging that it won't be easy this time. However, Dylan's confidence is short-lived, as the crocodile consistently overpowers him, regardless of the weapons Dylan attempts to wield. Meanwhile, Lennox is taken aback to see that and wonders what he should do if that creature goes with that brute strength. He contemplates that there are only 2 minutes and 17 seconds left until Ignite's activation, realizing that they are cutting it close. Seeing how Dylan's acting like that without even considering running away when he was so enthusiastic earlier, Lennox acknowledges that Crocodile Bastard is definitely on another level. With resolve, Lennox gathers his mana in his fist, determined to contribute what he can before exiting. Conversely, unaware of Lennox's presence, Mr. Crocodile expresses disappointment in Dylan's show of power. According to him, Dylan isn't as good as before and asserts that he doesn't even have the bloodthirst from when he first met him. Acknowledging Mr. Crocodile's strength, Dylan retorts that it feels like Mr. Crocodile is getting stronger as time goes on. He then covertly retrieves his concealed daggers from his back and emanates a crimson aura, wondering if the crocodile can feel some bloodthirst now. Dylan abruptly rushes to assault that creature, even though the crocodile deflects his attack with his bare fist. However, this time Dylan gives that creature a tough time, but still his efforts prove futile because the crocodile skillfully thwarts all his attempts. Suddenly, Mr. Crocodile lands a surprise attack on Dylan, which catches him off guard. However, just as the crocodile's attack is about to hit its mark, Lennox intervenes. He swiftly employs his lightning bind magical maneuver, causing lightning bolts to trap and immobilize the gigantic creature and render it unable to move. Meanwhile, Dylan considers it as the first and last chance they have to defeat that old bastard and leaps to assault him. Surprisingly, before Dylan executes his move, the crocodile effortlessly shatters the effect of Lennox's maneuver. Despite being struck by that maneuver initially, the crocodile doesn't let his guard down and quickly deflects Dylan's assault by strangling him tightly. The crocodile sternly asks Dylan why he didn't mention his association with a mage friend, sarcastically expressing that the situation was nearly mundane, but finds the sudden revelation cute and amusing. Furthermore, he asserts that he will send Dylan off first so he can play with his little mage friend. With incredible strength, the crocodile delivers a powerful strike to Dylan's face, sending him hurtling through the wall with a forceful impact. The sheer force behind the blow causes Dylan to crash outside the building. Afterward, the crocodile looks around to find that mage. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to it, Lennox rushes outside the building, contemplating that the creature is okay after being hit with lightning bind, which is strong enough to melt steel, and considers that the winner has already been decided. As he steps outside, he looks around for Dylan and soon finds him lying unconscious on the ground. He moves closer, unsure if Dylan is still conscious, but to his relief, he is alive. Lennox quickly considers how to safely transport him away from the factory to prevent any potential danger. Despite his concerns about mana addiction, he decides not to dwell on it at this moment. Instead, he uses strength and speed reinforcement to enhance his capabilities. He then provides his shoulder support to lift Dylan so they can get far from the factory because it will explode soon. Meanwhile, Mr. Krau's crocodile diligently scours the area, tirelessly searching for any trace of Lennox, consumed by curiosity about his whereabouts and oblivious to the imminent danger that Lennox is earnestly striving to avert. Unexpectedly detecting something amiss, Mr. Cover's crocodile's instincts kick in. However, Lennox's ignite maneuver triggers the gas particles before he can react, causing the entire factory to erupt into flames and be reduced to ashes in mere moments. Amidst the burning factory, Lennox conjures a magical protective shield around them to safeguard against potential harm. Dylan groans that he thinks all the bones in his body are crushed, prompting Lennox to wonder if he can walk by himself. Extremely exhausted by the intense ordeal, Lennox retrieves the viper from his jacket and drinks it, relying on its effects to ease his weariness. Noticing him, Dylan ponders if that's a physical strengthening stimulant, and when Lennox concurs, Dylan anxiously remarks that he has heard those stimulants have pretty severe side effects, but Lennox is drinking them without any problem, which surprises him. The protagonist doesn't respond to his concerns and remarks that their task or the request is probably a success. Furthermore, he shares his thoughts with Dylan that he thought it would be a battle between humans and a monster, but considers that Dylan is a pretty tough monster himself and asks if this is what it's like for superhumans who use their bodies to fight. However, Dylan retorts that he doesn't know what he is talking about, but will take it as a compliment. Dylan then lifts him through his jacket's collar, urging him to get up quickly if he doesn't want to die, and emphasizes that they need to get out of there. The protagonist anxiously ponders if he thinks the monster is still alive. In response, Dylan asserts that he doesn't just assume that. Instead, he is sure that the monster crocodile is all right. He asks Lennox if he isn't aware of who that older man is, and surprised by his lack of knowledge about the creature, Dylan expresses disbelief, questioning if Lennox has been secluded in the mountains or somewhere else to be unaware of the crocodile's identity. Dylan reveals that the crocodile is Croconacillus from Pandemonium. On the other hand, the crocodile emerges from the fiery wreckage of the factory, which is still under fire, referring to Dylan and Lennox as rats and vowing that he will kill them. Dylan further informs that the guy was a mercenary. After he retreated from being a mercenary, he worked as an executive of Pandemonium. Not only is Pandemonium a notorious global criminal organization that only invites hazardous criminals or outlaws to join them, but he became an executive there quickly. However, Lennox finds it hard to believe that an organization would appoint such a monstrous individual to an executive role. Suddenly, Crocan Crocodile barges out of that blazing rubble and catches their attention. Sensing the imminent danger, Dylan urges Lennox to flee as Crocan walks towards them. However, before they can make a considerable distance, Crocan swiftly charges, effectively blocking their escape with a fierce attack. Dylan suffers severe injuries from the crocodile's razor-sharp claws and falls unconscious, while Lennox is knocked aside, struggling to regain balance. Lennox contemplates that although this is a world where one can strengthen their body as much as they want with mana, he considers that Kroken's power is crossing the line. Kroken mocks the protagonist, pondering if that skinny bone over there is a mage, and laughs sarcastically, remarking that he looks young for a mage. Meanwhile, the protagonist stares at Dylan, considering that it would be impossible to run away with Dylan's current state. He contemplates that if he needs to fight that monster, he must try to end the fight as fast as possible, because the longer the argument goes on, the lesser his chances of winning are. He confidently approaches the crocodile to confront him. Kroken asks if he is the mage kid who fired the lightning magic. Furthermore, Kroken sarcastically asks if no one has taught Lennox that he shouldn't fire that at someone's legs. When Lennox asserts that a crocodile isn't a human though, Kroken bursts into laughter, stating that Dylan has brought a pretty gutsy brat along and urges that if he hadn't messed with the factory, he might be spared. The crocodile asserts that he needs to work for the money he receives, so he attacks Lennox, assuring that he will give him a painless death. However, the protagonist remains unfazed and employs the gravity bind maneuver, which binds Kroken's hands and legs, while the crocodile considers it a nifty trick. Confident in his strategy, Lennox believes that the heavier the target, the more the target's movements are restricted, and it will be hard to get out of that. However, his assertion infuriates Kroken, and he challenges Lennox to check it out. However, before he can free himself from that magical bind, Lennox employs more binding magic, which tangles the crocodile inside. The crocodile ferociously urges if Lennox thinks that a few strings like this could withstand his strength. Soon, the binding magic ensnares Kroken's mouth, while Lennox smirks that it's finally quiet. Nevertheless, he realizes that this much won't do it, so he intends to use the remaining money and gather mana in his hand. However, before he can execute any further tactics, Kroken fiercely shatters that binding magic and sternly warns the protagonist that soon he will be ripped apart like this. Despite Kroken's stern warning, Lennox remains composed and sarcastically apologizes to the crocodile, stating that he doesn't intend to stay still and get ripped apart, and refers to him as a terrific monster. Lennox gathers mana, asserting that he doesn't intend to reserve any energy in this dire situation where his life is on the line. He draws mana from his surroundings, which catches Kroken off guard, and he wonders what trick Lennox is trying to pull now. When Lennox continues to activate his magic, Kroken ferociously lunges to assault his rivalry. However, before he can lay a hand on Lennox, the protagonist swiftly deploys Frost Soul magic, which traps the crocodile in an ice crystal, rendering him unable to move. After that, Lennox realizes that he might have overexerted his mana, and suddenly his attention is diverted to Dylan, who is shrouded in ice due to Lennox's magic groans that he is freezing to death. Lennox walks toward him, pondering if he is still alive, and Dylan concurs, reasoning that his Gore-Tex suit is best for the cold. Dylan gets up immediately and tells Lennox they must get out before the older man escapes the ice crystal. The protagonist concurs, asserting that he thinks the crocodile will escape soon. However, before they can take any action, Kroken's movements cause the crystal to tremble and crack, which takes them aback as they realize they will be in a precarious situation. Dylan emphasizes that they must do something before he breaks out, to which the protagonist agrees, but he contemplates that he barely has any mana left and wonders what he has to do. Suddenly, an idea hits his mind, and with newfound confidence, he declares his intention to end the battle using a particular strategy. This declaration piques Dylan's curiosity about his next move. Lennox considers using common magic, which specializes in supporting long-range weapons that he can use with little mana, and shooting combo magic, which he used a lot as a magic marksman in World 2.0. He uses magic maneuvers like trajectory guidance, penetration reinforcement, and projectile acceleration to shoot that giant crocodile. Despite his concerns that this old gun can't handle the mana, he considers that this will end this fight. He employs aim assist magic and shoots Mr. Kroken before he can free himself from that giant ice crystal. The impact of the mana-infused bullet shatters the crystal and hits Kroken's eye. Dylan remarks that he didn't think Lennox would use a gun and ponders if it works this time. The protagonist remarks that it must have because he doesn't have any strength left. Unexpectedly, Mr. Croken reappears, commending it as an excellent move. His sudden appearance catches Lennox off guard, leaving him astonished by the giant creature's ability to capture the bullet with his eyelid. Lennox, taken aback by this turn of events, reflects on his meticulous use of 4 types of support magic to enhance the gun's power. Despite these enhancements, Croken managed to counter the attack with the sheer muscle strength of his eyelid, leaving Lennox shocked by the monstrous display of power. Croken responds sarcastically, acknowledging that he doesn't consider himself an average human. Unperturbed, he casually removes the bullet from his eyelid, mentioning that it still stings a bit and causes a small amount of bleeding, but it doesn't affect him much. Lennox tries to induce mana, but he realizes that he has no mana left, so sensing the impending danger, he grabs the Dyke's Lays cutter as his only hope. Meanwhile, Dylan retrieves his dagger, preparing to confront the crocodile. Mr. Chusi Croken reminds them of his earlier promise to grant them a painless death, but quickly reneges on that statement and lunges to assault, which catches them off guard. The forceful blow generates an immense explosion, scattering their gadgets and shattering the protective barrier that Lennox had conjured. Despite the devastation, Lennox is astounded to find himself still alive, and suddenly, his attention is drawn to a lady who appears to be single-handedly holding back Croken's attack. Croken acknowledges that he has delayed too much, realizing that the city's government hunting dog, Evelyn, has arrived. The enigmatic woman, emanating green mana, firmly declares to Croken that he has gone too far this time. Evelyn then skillfully deflects Croken's assault and ponders if he believes he would go unnoticed after blowing up an entire factory, which startles Croken. Furthermore, she adds that she thought Pandemonium would stay under the radar for quite a while, urging his purpose for causing havoc in District 42. Croken interrupts, proclaiming his innocence that he didn't do this to the factory, and shifts blame, pointing his finger towards Dylan and Lennox, insisting that the two of them are responsible for the explosion at the factory. Evelyn gazes at them, and Dylan abruptly nods his head that they haven't done anything, so she urges Croken to cut the crap, asking if the guys who were about to get their heads busted by him destroyed this whole building. The crocodile contemplates that, to be fair, it makes more sense that he had destroyed the factory than to presume that it blew up because he was incapable of stopping them, so he changes his verdict, stating Evelyn to believe what she will and asserts that he can't deal with anymore. Evelyn anxiously ponders if he is fleeing. In response, Croken turns his back, claiming that fighting an agent of the government wasn't part of his contract, so he has no reason to do anything that would put him at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Lennox is taken aback by the sudden turn of events, finding it hard to comprehend that the monster is evading confrontation, which sparks his curiosity about the lady's power compared to Croken's. As the crocodile departs, Evelyn shifts her attention to Dylan and Lennox, inquiring about their well-being. Dylan bows his head in gratitude, thanking her for intervening, while Lennox assures her that they're all right and expresses gratitude for her timely intervention that saved them. She takes off her mask, responding that they don't have to thank her because, as a government employee, she has to protect them. Lennox is taken aback to see her face as he realizes she is the lady he met at the greengrocer stall. Meanwhile, Evelyn offers assistance to help Lennox stand, but he hardly manages to stand alone. She expresses a feeling of familiarity, mentioning that it seems like she's seen him before, but Lennox denies any prior acquaintance, stating he doesn't recall such an encounter. The protagonist contemplates that he didn't think she was ordinary, but he didn't expect her to be a government elite either, and recalls that she wasn't lying when she said she makes much money. On the other hand, she expresses skepticism, indicating that he can't be the same person she encountered before due to the distinct nature of his mana pattern. Lennox reflected when she said that he has unique mana, and what a mage like him is doing at this place. He didn't anticipate starting to use what he learned from their first encounter in their second encounter. He smirked, contemplating that changing his mana pattern every time he used magic helped out, as she didn't find he was the same person she had met at the vegetable stall. She puts her mask on and sternly advises him to avoid getting involved with pandemonium if he wants to live a long life. After that, she lunges and leaves that place. As she departs, Dylan remarks that they have gone lucky, and Lennox coldly warns him that he will give up many of today's rewards. The protagonist reflects that none of this would have happened if Dylan got out of the factory quicker. He also takes the credit that he was the one who brought time against Kroken, so he wonders, yet the dichotomy of Dylan attributing their success to luck rather than strategy and effort pisses him off. Dylan then pats his shoulder, assuring that since Lennox has saved his life, he can have the entire reward except for 10 million cells, which means he can have 40 million cells. However, despite that generous gesture, Lennox remains unimpressed and wonders that even though he got money from Dylan, it still feels like he is at a loss. Lennox then uses the Viper to ease his weariness, but it surprises Dylan, and he abruptly halts him from drinking it, emphasizing that it's not good for his health. When the protagonist remarks that it's none of his business, Dylan suggests he grow his muscles like him, but Lennox urges him to shut up, asserting that he wasn't even helpful. Later, Lennox comes out of his washroom, and he tremblingly approaches his bed due to severe diarrhea. For a week after the Charlotte factory task, he remains uncertain whether his illness is because of the mana addict trait or because he overdosed on Viper. His sickness is so severe that he ends up sleeping continuously for 4 entire days, grappling with the aftermath of his ailment. He gazes at his trembling hands and, summoning some resolve, concludes that he can't continue this way. Recognizing the necessity of strength and determination to face challenges and threats, he decides to start consuming proper meals instead of relying on preserved foods. Additionally, he resolves to find better drugs. However, before embarking on these changes, he acknowledges the urgency of collecting his payment. The next day, he visits the bar, and Jenny cheerfully greets him, referring to him as their valued customer. She then asks where he has been for the past 10 days, to which Lennox vaguely responds that he has some matters to attend to. Jenny sarcastically remarks that it's a shame, as if he had died, she could have taken the reward for herself. Lennox contemplates that he felt like he was about to die because of the mana addiction side effects. Despite this, he resolves not to reveal his vulnerability to her. He inquires about Dylan's whereabouts, and she updates him that Dylan arrived that day, expressing his intention to hand over 40 million to Lennox. She opens a briefcase full of money in front of Lennox, asserting that she has charged Dylan the transfer fees so he doesn't have to worry about that. Additionally, she informs him that Vardis has given him a bonus, asking him to check it out. 60 million cells consisting of 61 million cell bills. As Lennox expresses curiosity about the 1 million cell bills, Jenny explains that these bills are utilized as a tool by the higher-ups to convey their sincerity in transactions easily. She then compliments Lennox on his performance during the job and casually mentions that she heard about his close encounter with the old crocodile. In response, Lennox reveals that he actually would have died if someone hadn't intervened in the end. He asks Jenny if she has heard the name Evelyn, to which she responds that she doesn't know much except that Evelyn is a direct agent for the state government, stating that he can consider her as an armed unit managed directly by the government with massive funding. Lennox then asks what pandemonium is, informing her that the croc was part of it. Jenny reveals that among all the gangs, murderers, and criminals, that group is treated like royalty. They only invite people that they like, so not much information about them gets leaked. According to her, the only ones they know are members are those like Kroken, whose tracks have been well known since before. She states that encounters with pandemonium are like encountering a natural disaster, so if he is unlucky, he will die, or if he is lucky like before, he will survive. At that moment, Lennox realized why Dylan was so calm even on the brink of death. Jenny then handed him a paper, stating that he had asked her about making a fake ID back then, and Lennox concurred. She informed him to visit the place mentioned on that page. She asks him to get a bank account and a phone, emphasizing that he has no idea how hard it is to prepare this much cash. Lennox acknowledges her concern and asks for one more favor. Later, the protagonist, with a new appearance, arrives at the location mentioned by Jenny. Upon arrival, a bald man swivels his head to acknowledge the protagonist, who informs him that Jenny sent him to this location. The man greets the protagonist, mentioning that Jenny has spoken about him. He assumes that Lennox must have heard the details roughly, so he asks him to settle the payment first. The protagonist, honing a new appearance, hands him 1 million sel, which excites the man, who remarks that Lennox has brought something precious here. The man even takes a moment to sniff the money, noting that these notes are typically reserved for high-ranking individuals who prefer cash transactions. He emphasizes that these notes aren't easily accessible, not even by commercial banks. He concludes that Lennox must be an essential customer to Jenny, given the rarity and significance of the transaction. He asks Lennox to wait for a little, as he has to bypass the Valkan resident registration network first. Lennox ponders if he is changing the network's information, but the Baldy denies his assertion. The hacker reveals that he is just changing the basic identity details like name, age, picture, and address, not the live data. He changes the outgoing signals automatically to forge Lennox's identity, emphasizing that it would work as a standard identification. However, he warns that if someone is determined to find flaws and monitors the network, Lennox will get caught immediately. When the protagonist expresses his concerns that it doesn't sound safe to him, the hacker mentions that there is a better method. According to the hacker, if he bribes the network administrator, he can change the information directly, but the price will be about 400 million sel. The hacker informs him that he has logged into the network and mentions that he will now find a long-time missing person's ID, reactivate it, and change the outgoing value. Confirming that the preparation is complete, he requests that Lennox take a picture of his face and inquire if he desires any specific name for the new identity. The protagonist contemplates for a while, then, instead of Van, he asks the hacker to write his name Evan, while the surname can be anything. Lennox acknowledges that he needs at least one identity that he can use in public since he doesn't know when he will need to abandon the identity known as Van. That's also the reason why he changed to another face, and he also needs to prepare for various situations to continue doing this line of work. The hacker then assures him that he will make an identity for Evan in no time. Later, as Lennox exits the hacker's office, he transforms back into the appearance of Van and examines his newly obtained ID card. He contemplates that this is the first time he holds proof that he has settled in this unfamiliar realm after he came to this world. A fake name, fake address, and even his age, none of it is true. Although he had simply been trying to survive as he went from place to place, he has still lived there. Today, he feels like that has finally been acknowledged. He dials Jenny from his new phone, informing her she can contact him via this number. Jenny responds that although she told him he can contact her only when he wants to work. She sarcastically adds that he is the only person in this city who took a month to get a cell phone to get in contact with her. Jenny refers to him as some mage who isolates himself in some backwoods while training there and emphasizes that if he wants to work in this line of work, he ought to get some income that he earns in broad daylight. Lennox ponders if she is asking him to work simple part-time jobs. Jenny concurs that if an unemployed citizen's bank account keeps receiving unknown income, it will look suspicious. However, if Lennox accepts work in the area, the money he earns will increase and not appear as unusual. She emphasizes that he should start thinking about that now. Lennox contemplates that while he hasn't decided to continue working with Jenny until he understands more of how the city works, he considers that it wouldn't be a bad idea to get work that Jenny recommends. Jenny further reveals that the rumors about him must have spread pretty far because of this time's incident, highlighting the possibility that someone might even ask for him specifically to do their task. According to her, in any case, the reward will be way higher according to his competency, so he must look forward to that, and with that, she ends the call. Conversely, as Lennox strolls along the roads, he muses that even if Jenny's demeanor becomes more amiable, it's all right to collaborate with her. However, he's not entirely inclined to trust her. He is sure that she has heard from Dylan about his ability to use ice magic, but she still hasn't talked about it yet. He reflects that they only talked about things that each of them needed. He recalls when he requested another favor, asking her if she knew where he could buy a viper. Jenny grasps the viper in his hand, stating that she knows a little here and there, but remarks that he has been using such cheap goods this whole time, which startled Lennox. She asserts that it's apparent that he will spoil his body with the side effects if he keeps using such things. She retrieves a pen and paper, affirming that she'll provide details about a Viper expert operating in the 30s district. While jotting down the address, she stressed that she didn't know if he had been to the 30s district and mentioned that the ambience and atmosphere there might contrast notably from their current location in the 40s district. It's where facilities that need much space like amusement parks, resorts, ports, or industrial complexes are gathered at. Jenny handed him that paper, referring him to that place in District 31. Back in the present, he examines the paper provided by Jenny, reminiscing that her responses were solely based on his inquiries as she didn't ask or talk about anything else. He grapples with uncertainty about her intentions, whether she's concealing her thoughts with a potential motive to betray him later, or if she aims to maintain their collaboration by safeguarding his secrets. He asserts that he will only ascertain her true intentions if they disclose all their intentions and plans openly. Nonetheless, he's determined to take the initiative rather than passively waiting for clarification. Lennox hails a taxi to head toward District 31 to meet the expert who sells vipers in a botanical garden. As he arrives, he contemplates that since Jenny has introduced this place to him, he should go in as Van. Utilizing his magical abilities, he morphs his appearance into Van and steps into the botanical garden, which looks nothing less than a tourist spot. Lennox obverses that vast place, which seems like a massive jungle, and takes a moment to enjoy the umbrella-like flowers stranded in the atmosphere. He is surprised that such a heavenly place exists in Valkan. He spots an entryway and wonders if it leads to the location Jenny mentioned. Upon entering, he observes various botanists passionately guiding curious individuals about the diverse plants in the garden. Amidst this, he notices a small door that resonates with the description he's been given. Recognizing it as the door he's seeking, he ventures through it and discovers the staircase. He descends the stairs and finds a door in a narrow alley. Although it appears slightly distinct, the faint aroma of the Viper solution confirms his suspicions. Convinced he's found the right place, he pushes open the door, which emits a distinct green mana. Lennox discovers a solitary figure in the peculiar laboratory who ponders his identity. The protagonist informs him that Jenny has introduced this place to him, and the older man ponders if he is talking about the brat who sells alcohol in District 49. The older man, with a peculiar hollow eye emanating a green mana, finds it strange and remarks that he has never given her permission to introduce customers to him, which startles Lennox. Yet, with a gentle smile, the Viper expert assures Lennox that he's not affluent enough to be picky about customers and affirms that as long as he receives payment from his customers, he's content to serve them. He then contemplates the purpose behind Lennox's visit to his orchard, and before everything, the protagonist asks why there is an orchard inside a botanical garden. The man shows him a red flower, pondering if he knows what this is. When Lennox seems oblivious, the Viper Master elaborates that it's a plant called Eonium, renowned for its effects like increased energy, physical strength, and stamina increase. He emphasizes numerous similar ingredients within the garden, suggesting that he might not need to purchase such items or ingredients from elsewhere. Thus, he contemplates establishing an orchard within this botanical garden to cultivate these resources. Lennox then grabs his viper out of his blazer, informing that older man that he is looking for something with similar effects, and asks if he has any items available. The older man notices that it's a viper activated by a button, then removes its filter and tastes the liquid inside. After analyzing its taste, he abruptly spits it out and remarks that this is super cheap, pondering why Van is looking for something shitty like this, as it probably wasn't even good at strengthening his body. Lennox remarks that it seemed to help with mana, which piques the Viper expert's attention, and he anxiously asks Lennox if he uses mana as he doesn't seem like a brute strength type. When the protagonist informs him that he is a mage, the Viper expert finds it weird and remarks that this kind of thing would help if he is a battle type that increases his stats using mana to fight. However, he informs Lennox that such a low-quality product wouldn't be effective for enhancing mana specifically, especially for magic purposes. The Viper expert shares rumors suggesting that if a high-class mage were to use a Viper, they might experience rapid effects. However, the expert expresses skepticism about the authenticity of these rumors, indicating that he doesn't believe them to be true. Additionally, he suggests that relatively young Lennox might not be classified as a high-class mage, emphasizing that mastering magic requires considerable time and effort. Lennox comprehends that this might explain why the Viper was adequate for him and contemplates the potential benefits of acquiring a higher-quality Viper for his needs. According to that man, something as subpar as the Viper Lennox only possesses low potency, and it's just harmful to his body, so he suggests the protagonist buy something else since it has adverse side effects too. Lennox responds by expressing his preference for something with fewer side effects, even if it comes at a higher cost. The expert acknowledges the concern and inquires about the budget range to help identify a fitting product. When the protagonist presents him